Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Just over a month ago, I booked a paid lead role in a short independent film that we actually just wrapped up shooting a few weeks ago. Some of you actually might have seen me post some behind the scenes for this project a few weeks ago because I missed a couple weeks of uploads because of this project. Now, there are a lot of people out there that are interested in getting into acting but aren't really sure where to start. I am not an expert, I'm not outrageously successful, and I don't really have any training. But in today's video, I'm going to be going over everything that I've learned in the past couple years of acting, and I'm going to be sharing that with you guys from the perspective of someone who is just like you, got into acting and has found some success. Let's do it. Action. Before going forward with this video, you need to know that acting is a skill, and like all skills, you're not going to start off great. So there's definitely an element of self-awareness to this. Let me tell you a quick story. In fall of 2022, I had built up my marketing materials like my headshot and resume, which I'll talk about later in this video. I had done a minor amount of acting practice up until this point and decided to throw myself out there and audition for a thesis student film in downtown Chicago. I ended up booking the lead role for this project and had an amazing time with the cast and crew on this set. When it came to exhibition of this short film, we screened it at the school's theater at the end of the semester in front of hundreds of people. I was absolutely pumped. And then every actor's nightmare became my reality, and my acting was laughably bad. It was so horrible that I started making that face you make when you witness a bad accident. So why am I telling you this story? You will almost certainly run into humiliation, embarrassment, and failure. But my point is that you should never let that stop you or slow you down, because at the end of the day, it's your persistence that's going to push you to success. So here's what I recommend. Pick a scene from a movie that you love and remake that scene with your phone, and you play the character leading the scene. You might feel self-conscious or slightly embarrassed, but if you seriously want to take a shot at acting, you need to learn to overcome this and realize that you need to start somewhere and you need to practice acting to get better at it as well. So that's my first pointer, self-awareness and practice. Now let's move on to marketing. When auditioning for a role, a casting director is going to ask for these specific items: your headshot, resume, actor reel, cover letter, and self-tape. Let's start with your resume. Listen, every single actor starts with an empty portfolio, so you shouldn't assume that you won't be booked because you don't have a resume. Again, everybody has to start somewhere, but once you book your first project, you need to make your resume. A resume with one role is better than no resume at all. An actor's resume should look like this, and it should include information such as name, contact information, hair color, eye color, height, weight, your listed filmography, which should include information such as project name, role you played, and production company. Finally, it should also include any formal training or skills you have, but we can assume here that you don't have any training or notable skills for this video. Now let's talk about headshots. On the screen now is my outdated professional headshots I got a few years ago. Do not make the same mistake I made. Many people, pretty much everyone, will tell you that you need professional headshots to get casted. And this really doesn't apply at the start of your career. Professional headshots cost hundreds of dollars, and they'll probably be outdated by the time you're constantly needing them, which is what happened to me with the headshots you see on screen now. So here's my advice that you're probably never going to hear from anybody else. Take your own headshots at the start. In fact, I'll take my own headshots right now and I'll walk you through everything that I did for mine. Let's do it. Setting. Where you take your picture is very important. Ideally, you take a picture in front of a wall that contrasts the color of your skin so that you pop out more. So in my case, that would be a dark wall, but in your case, that might look like a white wall or a more muted color like an olive greenish. Take into consideration what kind of lights are present in that space. Are there windows, ceiling fan lights, LEDs? Do you have enough space? You're going to be taking this picture at a long focal length, so you want to make sure there's enough distance between the camera camera and you. I happen to have a very ideal setup for my case. Now let's move on to lighting. You want to make sure that you use any lighting source at your disposal to try and help you accomplish the following setup. You want soft, flat lighting with a high key lighting ratio, which just means that you have two light sources pointing in each side of your face, and one of those lights is less powerful than the other one. This is so that the light that's less powerful can create some shadows on your face and create some depth. Finally, if possible, you want a slight backlight to make the subject pop out from the background. I unfortunately don't have enough lights to do that. Now let's talk about the camera. You guys are unfortunately going to need like a DSLR for this one. You cannot use your phone. If you don't have one, then a friend or a family member definitely does, so ask around. As for your lens, you want to try and get as long as a focal length as possible up until a focal length around 130 millimeters. You can also go ahead and turn that lens to autofocus, or if you can have someone else there, they can focus it for you. Now, your exposure settings are dependent on your lighting setup, but what you are aiming for is an iris open the widest as possible or the smallest f-stop available, and for your ISO to be as low as feasibly possible. It's important to make sure that your ISO doesn't go over 400 so that there's no chance of there being any noise present in the image. Finally, you want your shutter speed to be set anywhere between 150 and 200th of a second. As for the composition of your headshot, they are almost always output to 8x10" photos. So you want to shoot at an aspect ratio of 4:5, or you can shoot whatever aspect ratio is larger and then just crop it in Photoshop later. My camera's closest aspect ratio is 4:3, so I'm going to take the picture at that and then crop it later. You, or whoever you're taking a picture of, should be center frame and only show from the top of the chest to just above the head. As for your outfit, just wear something casual. It should look nice, but not be so over the top that it takes away from the focus of the picture, your face. Bonus, if your shirt contrasts the color of your skin like the wall. With that, you also want to take the picture the condition you see yourself in most often, or the condition you want to market yourself in. For me, that sadly means the mustache has got to go.
Listen, I get that this is a lot of information, but this is a super quick rundown to get the best results possible. And you don't need to follow all these steps when you're taking your own headshots, but you should follow enough of these steps so that you can hold your headshot up to a professional and marketable standard. And of course, you're also able to edit these pictures afterwards in Photoshop if you'd like. Before we start talking about self-tapes, let's talk about how you actually go on about getting casting calls. Before finding an agent to represent you, you'll most likely be using an app, software, or website like Backstage, Actors Access, Casting Frontier, and many others to get you your casting calls. I'm not going to do a full rundown on how these apps actually work because that would take forever, and also because they're pretty easy to figure out after just a little bit of use. I personally use Backstage. Here's what you need to know. These services are subscriptions. On the screen now is Backstage's subscription rates, but it's important to note that new users do get a big discount. Usually this cost turns people off of these casting call apps, but you need to see the subscription fee as an investment in yourself and your career. Most of the time, you're auditioning for roles that actually pay, so if you stick to it and you don't give up, I guarantee you'll book projects. Not only will you make back your money that you spent on that subscription fee, but you will also profit from it as well. I got so much more I can say about Backstage, but not enough time in this video. So if you'd like a follow-up video about casting call websites, leave a comment and drop a like. Now let's talk about self-tapes. When auditioning for a role on a casting call site, the casting director that created the post for the project also includes what media you need to submit for your audition. As previously stated, this usually includes headshot, resume, reel, self-tape, and cover letter. A self-tape is simply a recording of you performing the sides of the character that you are auditioning for. Sides are just a small sample of the script that the director and casting director pulled for auditions, and it's usually a critical moment in the narrative for that specific character. Usually the casting director will clarify how specifically they want the self-tape to be composed. For example, a full body shot or a full shot. You should also be wearing something as relevant to the character or narrative as possible. But most importantly, you should always start a self-tape with a slate. A slate is an introductory that comes before your performance that clarifies information such as representation, where you currently reside, your height, age, union status, and of course,
the character that you are auditioning for. And finally, a cover letter is simply a short letter that you include in your audition that explains why you should be considered for the role that you're auditioning for. I'm not actually going to be going over how to write a cover letter because most of the time on these small backstage projects that you're looking to book in the beginning, they don't actually ask for one, but also because there are plenty of videos out there that go over this specifically. To wrap this up, let's go over some additional marketing once you've got 1 or 2 projects under your name. Firstly, you should consider the aforementioned actor reel, which is just a 2-minute video of your acting highlights. You can either pay someone to make one for you, or you can download a free video editor on your phone or computer and make it yourself for free. Secondly, it's very common for actors at this point to create a portfolio website for themselves, which just showcases all the marketing material you've made for yourself so far, and it usually includes additional information such as a bio of yourself, who you are, what kind of work you like to do, that sort of thing. If you want, you can go ahead and check out my website as an example. Finally, the last thing I'll go over in this video is representation. After you think you've got enough projects under your belt and you believe that you have good marketing material, decent experience, skill, it might be time to consider finding an agency to represent you. Being represented by an agent gives you access to higher level casting calls and just generally places you in a higher level of professionalism. Alright, that is a lot of information, and I hope that it helps anyone who wants to get into acting with 0 experience. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for your time. It means a whole lot to me. If you did in fact find this video helpful or enjoyable, if you could do me one last favor and drop a like or leave a comment, or even if you're new around here and you enjoyed this video or this kind of content or all things film, subscribe. I can't wait to see you guys again for another video, but until then, you guys have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.